King P here.
And Steelio7, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Metropolis. We are joined this week by Chris and Carl from GeeK KetchUP Podcast. We talk about how their podcast got started. We also discuss next-gen consoles, what our preferences and our favourites are, and our reviews so far. Plus, we talk about all the latest shows from Marvel and Star Wars.
Hope you enjoy it.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to This Week in Metropolis.
Welcome to another episode of This Week in Metropolis. This week we are delighted to be joined from some friends of ours from across the pond. We are joined by Chris and Carl from GeeK KetchUP. Guys, how you doing?
Doing great.
Doing well.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
For those that...
Did you rehearse that before you came on?
That's how we do everything.
Right, yeah. One mind.
That's it. For those that don't know of your podcast or of your show, can you, either one of you, or you can do it in stereo, can you give us a brief of how it got started and what it's about?
Yeah, go for it, Kyle.
Yeah, so, I was going to have you do this because I feel like you were the one that pushed me into doing it.
Pushed you? Was you reluctant to begin with?
No.
I had this issue as well, Carl, don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Made it,
yeah. Basically, Chris said, I'm going to start a podcast and you're going to be on it. But no. So I would say for a long time, we had a little, group chat, a text group chat with a couple buddies, and we would always joke. We'd have really funny days or days we thought we were being funny. And we were like, man, we should turn this into a podcast. We have some really good discussions and deep discussions. It would be fun just to kind of turn on the mics and get it started and do a podcast. And we put it off for probably 2 years.
Yeah.
And then Chris one day kind of hit me up and said, hey, do you want to do this for real? Like, let's get the equipment. Let's be serious. And we kind of took it from there. I think I took a day. We live in different states in the United States. Chris lives in the South, lives in North Carolina. I live in Maryland, so it's about an 8-hour difference. And I drove down, and we did one session in person to make sure it worked, and we sounded okay and didn't sound like we didn't know what we were talking about.
Like we do.
Yeah. And then it went from there. I don't know if Chris has anything to add.
Yeah, it was pretty much that. Kyle and I have known each other going back to, we were 3-4 years old. So, we've always kind of followed along with each other and been into nerdy stuff, geekery stuff, superheroes, video games, wrestling was always a big thing for us. And anybody that knows me knows that I can just talk. So yeah, we kind of just finally said, hey, I bought a microphone, let's do this and see if we can make it work, and the rest has really been history. I think we originally said we were going to do 4 episodes and just try it out, and now we're going on 2 years later.
How many episodes are you up to now?
I think we're getting close to 50. I know we just dropped chapter 32, but we've done some bonus stuff. We do wrestling recaps on the different WWE and AEW pay-per-views and things like that. So I think we're getting close to 50 though.
Yeah, same here. So we probably started around the same sort of time. We're approaching our 50th as well. It's one thing I've got to point out from when I've been listening. I said this to Matt earlier, and for anyone listening to this show and not watching, you may get confused when you're listening to Carl, because I don't know if anyone's ever told you this, Carl, but you sound a lot like David Spade.
Really?
Yeah. Which and I think he's legend. I like one of my favourite films from a Disney side, Emperor's New Groove, which he voiced Cusco. Yeah. And when I listened, I literally texted Matt the other day and said, he sounds like David Spade, and we both agreed. So if you ever need to do voiceover covering someone, there's
David's not available.
If David's listening, you've got your guy here.
Joe Dirt 2, starring Kyle David Spade Eckert.
I was going to say, when I was in high school, I probably could have fit the bill because I had the hair. When I was a little younger, I had hair down to my shoulders.
Right.
So did I, believe it or not. but obviously that was quite a while ago. Yeah.
and I've seen the evidence. We'll have to post that, Matt, on the socials, just so everyone gets a glimpse into your past.
It is true. I did have hair.
So, I mean, as I say, we've been listening to your stuff. I've been listening to it for a little while, actually, because one of the big stories since kind of November, I think it was, or probably just a little bit before then, was about from a gaming perspective, was Xbox or PS5. Yeah. And Matt is an avid, I think Matt and Chris will get on here because if I'm right, you guys are both more onto Xbox. Kyle, you're more PlayStation?
Oh yeah, I'm a PlayStation homer through and through.
Same here. So I mean, it's currently divided quite well here on the screens as well. So one of the things I was doing, because Matt really tried to convince me to switch allegiance,
and you nearly did.
And I nearly did.
You did.
And the reason for that was, and I've talked about it before on the show, but I just don't like the look of the PS5. I still don't like the look of it.
Yeah, it's terrible.
However, the thing that swayed me most was listening to one of your reviews about it, because I didn't get it on release. I wasn't that fortunate, and I've literally, as of today when we're recording, I only got it last week delivered. I was one of the lucky ones that managed to get, because in the UK it's just been like gold dust. So I managed to get one, and one of the things that kind of convinced me was the new controller with the kind of what is it, haptic feedback or whatever it's called.
The DualSense.
It's just incredible. I keep saying to Matt, it is literally mind blowing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts now? Because you've got both, haven't you, Chris?
I got both. Yeah, I am mostly an Xbox guy and have been, but my gaming history is more transient, I guess I will say that. You know, I'm more of, I just want the games. I want to be able to play everything, and have been lucky enough to be able to have both in this recent climate where they were so hard to come by. But yeah, I mean, I think I said in that episode, and I still feel this way today, that I want a DualSense controller on my Xbox, like stat. Playing Astro's Playroom, and you get that first introduction to what it can do and how those triggers can have, you know, different sensitive or different pressures. It's just really, really impressive. It might have been the most innovative thing that we got out of this entire generation jump.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know I recently picked up Miles Morales. I didn't get it on launch, but I got it within the past week or so. And I played the PS4 version of Spider-Man a little while back, just like, Miles Morales, I'm going to pick it up soon, so it'd be fun to replay Spider-Man. And then making that jump and feeling the difference in the web swinging from the PS4 version controller to the new one on the PS5. Like, it's something else, like the resistance and just the rumble and the different, like, you know, the haptic feedback that you get on the controller. I just geek out all the time. Like, I have moments where I'll be gaming and I'll be playing and I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll turn to my girlfriend and be like, here, do this real quick, just so you can feel the controller, because it's so cool.
I've done exactly the same thing as well with my wife. Like, told her to just try this. I mean, she's got no interest in gaming.
But that's what I was going to say. In that situation, do either of them say, that's amazing, I can really feel the difference? Or do you get the response, it was the same? I can't even tell the difference. Yeah, what's changed?
I think for mine, she at least, you know, plays in a little bit, and she goes, "Oh, that's cool, Kyle. Here,
take it back."
Yeah, take it back. Yeah. She's like, "I'm gonna go back to my book." But that was cool.
Well done.
I'm just pleased that it hasn't. And I think you guys said it. It's not gimmicky. It's completely. And I play. So I'm notorious for being pretty rubbish at the library of games that I own, to a point where I've sold the PS4 that I had now, and the guy said to me, have you got any games? And I just looked through and I had like all the last 5-6 years of FIFA, because I'm a huge football fan. So there was a few others in the mix, but you know, it was mainly FIFAs. But even playing that on the new console, like when the players get tired, all of a sudden your sprint becomes tighter, and you're not able, they've not got that energy. It's just little touches like that just make, and I think you talked about it in your podcast as well, where even some of the I think one of you mentioned about Call of Duty, how that game has just gone on to another level on that new console. But yeah, I'm just so pleased that it's met expectations, and you know, this is still early days with it. And the one thing I wind Matt up about with the Xbox is the controller on there. I'm happy with the feel of it, but it just feels like they've not really done a great deal with it. You know, you've still got a battery pack that you need to, you know, unless you get the rechargeable ones and things like that. It feels very dated in the modern gaming world.
Yeah, I was really hoping that they were going to ship the Series X with the Elite controller that they've come out with, because you had the modular aspects to it where you could change out stick height and things, and the Elite 2 has gotten a lot of praise. I know the Elite 1 had some issues from quality standpoint, and then they came out with pretty much the same. You know, the 8-way D-pad on the new Xbox controller is great, and you know, it has a better like tactile feel because they gave it a little bit of grip.
There's something about it that's you can feel it's better. It's not necessarily a huge advance, but yeah, as you said, the texture on the back and the triggers and refined, I would say, but not improved as such. Yeah,
it was almost like going from like an iPhone 10 to an iPhone 11, where like you just know it is better, but like how much better, you know? But I'll say this, I mean, as having both consoles, and Kyle will tell you, I'm a huge proponent of the Xbox controller, and that's really one of my biggest reasons why I've been an Xbox guy for so long. Was I got bigger hands, so that little bit bigger controller always felt a little bit better in my hands versus the PS3 and PS4 controllers. But now I'm in this weird conundrum because the DualSense is so good, and they made it bigger. Like if you stack the DualSense right next to a current Xbox controller, they're pretty much the same size, so it feels more comfortable. But like when I'm going to look at games, like now I'm in this weird conundrum of which console do I buy games on, because you know, they both look great graphically, they're both running really fast, but I'm like, I just want to use this DualSense controller more. So I'm like always kind of looking like, do I get it on the PS5, even though I'm typically more of an Xbox guy? But it's good. Like that's what we need, because I think a lot of the industry, you know, there's always innovations in certain areas, but a lot of things in gaming I felt like kind of flattened off a little bit. And we're getting a lot of the kind of the same experiences, you know, not a big jump of feel or controller changes between like a PS3 and a PS4 or whatever it may be, you know. So seeing something like this, I thought was great. And, you know, the recent announcement, Sony announced the new VR.
Yeah, I posted about that, yeah.
And it looks a little bit more in line with like the Oculus and the Index. So, I mean, that could be really cool here in the next couple of months or next year whenever they release it.
Do you think with Xbox as well, and Matt, you'll be able to add to this as well, that there hasn't really been as many exclusives either, certainly with the launch of the new Series X?
I think that Xbox's approach, though, when they were sort of talking about initially, is focusing on sort of Xbox as a service rather than the console itself, and they're putting so much into Game Pass and sort of having that network infrastructure. So I remember the guy from Xbox was talking about it. They don't care whether you link your controller to your phone and then stream the game to that, or play it on a PC or play it on your Xbox. It's using your service and being able to game wherever you want. And I think, you know, the recent acquisitions that they've been making, where they're literally buying game studios sort of on the regular and adding that content to it. They don't really need it. They're you know, an exclusive, because it's the fact, come to Xbox, you get everything you need. You pay you know, £10 a month or whatever it is, and you've got a whole library of games. You're ready to go. And I think that's their focus more than anything from the entertainment point of view, rather than Sony's always been come to us, we have this and no one else has it. I remember years ago buying a PlayStation just purely to have is a PS2 to get San Andreas and things like that, because GTA was exclusive with them for quite a while.
Yep. Seems like a lifetime ago.
Well, yeah, it was. 15 years or something ridiculous now, wasn't it? Yeah. So yeah, I just think they're doing completely different approaches with it. So it'll be interesting how that pans out, really.
Well, and you see that a lot with Game Pass, and I know Kyle gets super jealous about Xbox Game Pass, but that's been one of the best services that they've ever added there, because
incredible.
The value of $10 a month, and they're always putting not just quality games from the past, but there's Microsoft Studio like day one launches that they're adding, and even coming up that new Square game, Outriders, is going to be a day one availability on Game Pass. And I feel like Sony's trying to catch up a little bit, but they still haven't quite gotten there. They still want you to pay that $60-$70 for the console exclusive.
Yeah, and that's it. And it does that, and particularly sort of seeing it through my eyes, but seeing through the eyes of my children as well. It completely changes the dynamic. It's like it's something that, being older, I'm completely unfamiliar with. I'm used to thinking, there's a new game, I purchase that game, and then I will play that game as such. Whereas with their friends, it's, Sea of Thieves. My mate was talking about Sea of Thieves. Is it okay if I download that? And they're on that one day, and then the next day, can I have? Is it okay if I download Human Fall Flat? Or
it's the equivalent of downloading a phone, like a phone app.
Yeah,
a game on your phone,
exactly
playing that for a few weeks, and then
And I'm still of the mentality, but you've only just got that game. Why aren't you playing that game still? No one's playing that anymore. I want this one. But Game Pass frees that up.
That's a good point, though. That's a good point I think you make there, and I don't know what you guys think, but I used to be once I got a game, I would focus on trying to complete that game. I mean, it's difficult with FIFAs, but if I got like The Last of Us, which I finally completed last year after kind of putting it to one side for ages, and once I was in it, I was hooked. It was like every night I need to kind of just do a bit more, and I'm not very good at chopping and changing. Like, I can't be playing two similar types of games, especially because the controls are so, and the amount of hours that go into these games. I've started playing Valhalla today.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's blowing my mind, just graphically and the gameplay of it. But it's getting used to kind of, my little boy, he's been playing Miles Morales, which I got them two games on with the console. So I'm kind of helping him with that as well. And then there's certain actions that I do on Spider-Man that I'm going, no, I can't do that on Valhalla. And again, I mean, this is how bad it is. This is the first Assassin's Creed game I've ever played, and I'm 35 years old. And that's why
I've never played any.
There you go.
Unbelievably, yeah.
And that's why our geek level is not as good as yours.
It's about that much. Yeah.
But what Carl, what are you enjoying game-wise on the PS5? Because you've had it obviously since release, yeah?
Yeah, I've had it since release. I was tough out the gate with the PS5 because my PS4, like, the hard drive crashed right almost 2 months before the PS5 came out. And it was actually in a situation where I wasn't going to get a PS5 on launch day. And then my PlayStation 4 crashed. And I was looking at a situation, do I go buy a brand new PS4 now? Or do I just kind of bide my time, play my Switch for 2 months, and then buy a PS5, which is ultimately what I ended up doing. But I played a lot of the older PS4 era games when I first got my PS5. So I hadn't beaten Ghost of Tsushima. So I had to beat that. I was still playing Marvel's Avengers at the time. I didn't get a chance to beat the campaign, which I think ultimately benefited from because it gave me time, or gave the developer time to push out more content. Yeah. Because I would have beaten it too early, and that's been a problem with that game. So I've actually been playing a lot of the older PS4 games. Also, when I bought my PS5, I upgraded TVs. And so for a really long time, I had about a 9 or a 10-year-old TV. So I was experiencing HD, but it wasn't the best quality HD. So
that's like your whole world has been opened.
Yeah, it's like I went from like a 42 inch. It was a 1080. It was a 1080, but it was dated. and like the bulbs were dying in the back, like it was a little dim, to all of a sudden I got like a brand new 55-inch. It was lighting up my living room, and I was just I went to play Red Dead Redemption 2, and my eyes were just
I feel like me and Carl are like the same person from different universes or something.
It's
because
true.
I've literally done exactly the same thing. I had a 40-inch Sony full HD, you know, it was all singing, dancing. I probably had it about 10 years, I reckon. And I'd been on at Matt as well. I kept saying to Matt, I'm going to get a new TV, and you see all these new ones. I ended up buying one, which again, like you say, it was like 4K. It's all singing, all dancing, 55-inch as well. And
That's so funny.
it broke within like a week. I had all of a sudden I had these lines coming up on it. I was like, what?
Ooh.
I've just paid stupid money for this. I ended up taking it back, and I chopped it in for an even better one. It's like an OLED. the salesman, as they do. I'd ordered the same TV, and I remember going in there, and he said, I remember seeing the OLEDs, and I said, what's the difference? And he went, let me tell you. And then I'm sold.
Yeah.
How much extra?
About £500. That's
do
what
you
the
know-
difference is, sir.
You don't know my wife, do you? Don't tell her. But yeah, and literally, like you say, it lights up the living room. It's just ridiculous. The you know, just everything about it. Along now with this console, which I'm intrigued to know, because I haven't actually played any PS4 games, and I bought before I got the PS5, I bought The Last of Us 2 Part 2, so I haven't actually played that yet, but I'm planning to play it on this. Is the upscaling from the games that you've played? Are you noticing a difference?
I would say between Red Dead and Ghost of Tsushima, I noticed a significant difference, and it was because I had just played them on the PS4, on the older TV. It was pretty stunning, and it was a lot of the little details, mainly in the grass. In every game I played, when I'd go to an open field, that's where I'd notice it the most, with the way the grass would blow or a tree would blow, wind. In Red Dead, especially the animals, they were just way more crisp, and the little ones, like when you're in the deep wood and you're hunting a rabbit or something like that, like, and you can actually see the details of the rabbit and like the white little bushy tail, versus previously you'd see like a little brown blurb square, be like, oh, I know it's a rabbit, go for it. So I have whether it really is or not, and it's just like my brain tricking me, I don't know, but I also don't care, because it's all amazing to me.
Exactly.
Well, no matter what, I think you're going to get some benefits out of going from those older TVs to 4K. I mean, that alone is like when Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz goes from black and white to color. Like, you realize that your eyes have been getting robbed of quality visuals once you start really getting in front of 4K content. And games are just such a great medium to showcase that because of what they can do. But I think, Kyle, just to kind of point it out, you also played those games before they launched any next-gen patches too, right? Like, didn't you jump back into Ghosts and stuff? So, I mean, you were seeing upscaling and like better performance, better quality, and they hadn't even come in and actually dropped a specific patch to take it next level like a lot of the game companies are doing now. And, you know, some of those last gen games from last year are still getting updates this year to really kind of push them to what the new consoles can do. So I think you're in for a treat when you start hitting some of those games, man, because, you know, if you haven't played them, like even Valhalla, like I played the first 15 hours of Valhalla on the Xbox One X and then finished it on the Series X, and you could absolutely tell that you were getting more power, more oomph, more graphics, and the whole 9 yards out of the new version.
The visuals on that game, just from playing it for a couple of hours today, they're it's just mind-blowing how they've managed to do it, and it's a huge game as well from what I've heard, so I'm going to be playing it for a while.
I beat it 140 hours, man. That's what you're in for.
Okay. I better tell the wife and kids that I won't be seeing them for a while. What are you playing, Chris, on the Xbox?
As of today, actually, I picked up a new game yesterday that came out called Retro Mania Wrestling. And I had not seen this until I was just perusing. I'm notorious for just perusing the store every week and seeing what's out there, even if I'm still working on a current game. And came across this one. I mean, it's got great like Super Nintendo graphics. It's got this roster of indie wrestlers, and
I'm
even
sure,
like
James, you sent me a link for this
I think
a little
I did
while
as well.
ago. I'm sure. Does it look very similar to the WWF that was on the arcade?
yeah,
It's got that sort of
exactly.
style to
I
it.
think
Yeah.
I've seen it,
Yeah, arcade game or like Royal Rumble on the Super Nintendo, like that. And it's got like the Blue World Orders in there with the blue meanie,
yeah.
and then the main character, they call him Johnny Retro, but he's John Morrison, who's currently in the WWE. But it had, like, I was looking, it had like 55-star ratings on day one in the Xbox store.
Wow.
And so I was sitting on some gift cards for Christmas because games right now, you know, we haven't gotten as many on the new consoles as we typically would, just with everything that's going on. But it's been a nice little gem. Like it's got a story mode, and Tommy Dreamer's in there, and like all, you know, LOD and all these classic wrestlers are kind of mixed in, and the gameplay is really great. Like I was addicted to it all morning this morning, actually, trying to play through some of the story.
And a lot of people have been wanting that as well with wrestling games. I mean, Matt, I know you're not a huge wrestling fan, but from a gaming perspective, they've kind of lost their way a bit. And whenever anyone asks me what's your favourite wrestling game, I always go back to No Mercy or them games on the 64 that were just like incredible.
Yeah.
And I feel like they've kind of, you know, one of my mates who does a wrestling podcast, he says, I wish they'd done like a GM mode again and things like that. They've kind of gone to, it's too tactical now, especially with the move sets and things like that. It's just too complicated. It's not just I remember the old days, it was like one was a punch, one was a kick, one was a grapple, and the other one was run to the ropes probably. But
that's exactly how this is.
Yeah.
So
and that's what I think people like. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got just those 4-button commands, and you build a meter, and you know, if you win a grapple, you can use the directionals to do different moves. So it's got a variety of moves in there, but it plays really well. Like I was pretty impressed. It had a $25 price tag on it, which I thought was a little steep, but it's got 50 match types. Like I'm totally going to give the commercial here for this game, but I mean, it has a lot. The only thing I think it needs is online. It doesn't have an online multiplayer at the moment, but if you could jump in and play a game like that with online multiplayer, that would be next level. I think that would be awesome.
And I think they announced online multiplayer like TBD. There was a few things on the website, because when you sent it to our one chat, like, hey, I'm going to pick this up. Is anyone else interested? And we went out and looked, because the first question was, does it have online multiplayer? The website said, you know, online multiplayer, TBD, DLC, kind of depending on how many people buy it. So,
it would be cool. Hopefully it does enough that they bring that, because, you know, it seemed like the initial pop, you know, the initial reviews were pretty strong from the fans.
What are you playing, Matt?
Street Fighter in various forms at the moment on the I've got an arcade machine, so Street Fighter 2 on the arcade.
Awesome.
And then Street Fighter 5 on the PC, because you can get it on the PlayStation but not Xbox, but you can get it on the PC. So that on the PC. And then they did an anniversary collection, which is all of the sort of various games from throughout the time as such, and that as well. And so I bought myself a fight stick, a Hori fight stick, which
awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. That bad boy.
Oh yeah.
Old school.
And I'm training hard. I've played it since it was out in the arcade, sort of, you know, in 92 or whatever, but I've never just played it for fun, but I'm sort of focused. I'm going to get really good at this.
Is this because we spoke to Trifles?
No, before that was, yeah. I've just been
you want to be part of his team.
I never have a New Year's resolution, and this was sort of like my subconscious New Year's resolution. This year, I'm going to get really good at this. So yeah,
That was my first thought, though, about Triforce, because I was listening to your episode this morning with him, and that's exactly what's going through my head. I was like, this guy's going to join Triforce's team.
Triforce.
You better hit him up.
We're best pals now, so
get those Chun-Li blocks.
That's it. I'll do my parry.
Incredible.
I can do it.
So, who's your main in that game?
It's Ryu, or Ryu, as I tend to call him. Yeah, I've always played that character, and I'm very much focused on getting good at that character. I've got a foundation level of understanding, but the thing is now I prefer, a bit like you were saying in a wrestling game, I very much prefer Street Fighter 2 and the sort of variants of that, just the simplicity of it and the tactical nature of that. Once you get to 5, you've got the sort of EX moves, I think they're called, like the special moves and things like that. But I was reading a book this evening, because I'm that sad about Street Fighter and about how to get really good at it. And it's talking about frame rates, like that you take it to that level that, you know, it's at 60 FPS and at a certain point you have to try and get the sort of hit on the first sort of one, and like analysing how many frames are remaining, and like if you get hit on the first frame, that will give you plenty of time to recover, and it's just mind-blowing how sort of in-depth they go. And a part of me with that is sort of, is that fun then? You know, like, are you really having fun when you're looking at frame rates that, you know, in a fighting game? Wow.
That's more like science, you know?
It is like science.
100%
fun.
That's
heard Sonic Fox, I think he's the big-time Mortal Kombat player. He, like, seen interviews with him where he talks about the character animations and how over the years with Mortal Kombat, that's how you develop skills at the game, and watching the character animations and when to punch, when to kick, when to counter strike, because it has a hitbox. Yeah, and I'm kind of along the same lines. Like, man, I just like to get in there, do combos, and mash buttons.
Yeah.
Hope for the best. But it's really weird. I watched this YouTube video, and it was like this awakening. It is really odd. So, having played a certain way for ages, and any arcade game or whatever, just the feel of a joystick, you tend to hold it in a particular way or whatever. There was this guy, and he was teaching you how to hold the joystick properly. And it sounds ridiculous, and I'd never really thought about it. And literally, after watching that video, my game went up considerably. It was amazing, and it's all about not holding it like that. As such, you just have your hand like this, and you basically pass the joystick between your fingers. So it's just this light touch. You almost sort of just flick. World difference. I don't know whether that's applicable to other games as well, but it's just incredible. The change in performance just from doing that one thing. Like, wow.
Well, we don't get to use joysticks nearly as much as we used to in the past. No. Like, you know, when arcades were really a thing and you were frequenting them, like, you kind of had that muscle memory. And then for last 15, 20 years, it's pretty much mostly, at least for me, it's been mostly consoles and controllers. And I'm not a mouse and keyboard guy at all, but I'm gonna have to keep that tip in mind, because Kyle and I have been doing a lot on emulators lately with a lot of the retro games. And a little while back I got it's not the same one, but it's a big joystick, wireless Bluetooth, kind of deal that you can use. And I haven't broken it out yet, because I'm kind of like it's gonna make me suck at everything I play.
Yeah, that's the
problem. but I've been kind of itching to get it out and start playing with it. So that thumb and forefinger thing I might have to keep in mind. I'll be hitting you up for tips.
I'll find the video. I'll send you the video, because it's really interesting just seeing that technique. What retro games are on your list then, in terms of ones you love or ones you really look forward to playing as such?
Well, I mean, going back to the retro games, really anything platformers, RPGs has always been a big, the side-scrolling arcade style. Those are the three that I really get into with the old school games. So when I got the emulator, the first thing I had to play was pretty much all of the Turtles and X-Men and Marvel side scrollers that were in the arcade in the 80s and early 90s.
Love them.
Yeah, so that's a ton of fun. And of course, with the emulators, you get unlimited credits. You don't have to throw the quarters in there, so that always helps when you get to the tougher levels. But Kyle and I recently have been playing a Tecmo Super Bowl because we're doing.
I was listening to that episode earlier. Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah, we started the Retro Sports League Challenge solely to kind of use that modern twist of playing seasons, but on these old school games. And so I've been getting my butt kicked up and down, but Kyle's a Tecmo master. But that's been what really has been taking the time as far as the retro games lately.
It's funny because I got the classic Nintendo Mini, the first Nintendo, and I remember getting it for Christmas a few years back and playing it on Christmas Day, and then it went away in a box, and then I was back on the PlayStation, and then it kind of just stayed there. But with my little boy getting older, it was kind of like that was my introduction for him. I was like, this is what Daddy played when he was your age. And seeing him struggle with it, and in my head, I'm thinking this is the easiest thing ever. And yet now he's playing Miles Morales, with a bigger DualShock. So it's certainly it's cool watching and even playing that with him and getting frustrated with it. I've been playing Mario thinking I could just breeze through this. I'm dead again because you're so used to a certain way of games kind of reacting. A lot sharper, and I think on them old consoles now there is a bit of a delay on certain aspects to it.
I found it amazing though with because I've not got them now, but I had the Nintendo Classics, and it's weird. Certain games like the first Mario and particularly Super Mario World, which I absolutely adored on the sort of Super Nintendo. It's muscle memory. There was so many. I remember switching that on and being sort of, oh yeah, you jump there, you do that.
Right.
And I was thinking, that's in there somewhere. I've not played this for 20 years, but I still know where certain bits are. It's really odd, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you think about how it's like a song,
Yeah, it is.
You put so much more time into these things than you ever think you do.
Yeah.
And I mean, as kids, we all probably put hundreds of hours into Mario or whatever it was.
Before school, after school, just constantly,
yeah. Changing gears slightly, because I know you guys are big fans of Marvel, DC, and all comic book related superhero stuff. What are your thoughts on the current situation with kind of the series that they're releasing rather than doing movies? Because I've heard a lot of mixed reviews basically after WandaVision. I'm assuming both you guys have seen that.
Yep.
A lot of people some people digged it. I mean, me and Matt thought it was amazing. But I have actually seen on Twitter, and I've actually had friends of mine say, not feeling this series business. I much prefer the kind of movie saga way. What are your thoughts?
I know for me, I prefer a series. I think it gives them more time to do more in-depth storytelling.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if there's one particular Marvel movie that we could point out that says you could have really turned that into a 10-episode series, got a little more in-depth with your storytelling. But I think there are a lot of IPs out there that you could apply that to and say, instead of trying to cram everything into a 2.5 or a 3-hour movie and speeding up the storytelling and not really getting good character development, spread it out over 10 episodes, an hour a piece. Like with Netflix and Amazon and the various streaming services, it's been proven that people will sit down and watch it and binge it or take their time either way. But so whenever it comes to that, I'm going to prefer a TV series. Give it to me in small bits, but I also get that more of a character development, more details, more Easter eggs, because that was one of the best parts of WandaVision. With each individual episode, they were 100%. Able to lay these little plot points and little Easter eggs that kept people, rewatching and fishing for them week after week.
Do you think though, I think one of the complaints people had, I didn't mind it as such because I felt it got me into a routine, but was the fact that you had to wait till the following Friday for the next one, because like you said, Netflix, a lot of them, kind of Amazon, it'll just be all there for you and you can binge it and do what you watch it in whatever way you want to watch it. Do you think that was a good thing?
Depends on the show. I actually don't mind it. It's interesting though. I know that WandaVision came out week by week, but I actually waited until it was all said and done, and then did it over the course of 3 days.
And then just had to avoid spoilers for however many weeks.
And I'm not sure how I did it, but I actually avoided most spoilers, which is strange because for the podcast, I was logging into social media every day, and somehow I avoided most spoilers. And some of it, with my history with comic books, like you kind of know where some stories are going, or at least a general idea, so you're not too worried about spoilers. But I'll take it both ways because I think I have the ability to shut myself down and say I'm going to wait until this is over. But there are some series out there where, you know, I like the tease. I like the week and the drop, and then you get me itching for it. Mandalorian is a really good example of that, where the cliffhangers at the end of each episode had me rewatching it almost immediately, and then just jonesing for that next Friday.
I think it's a double-edged sword with how they do it today. And I think for a while when we first would get these big drops and you could binge everything, it just seemed like the better option, right? But one thing I go back and forth on is that I think with having the ability to binge, you know, an entire season, 10, 12 hours or multiple seasons, you're always going to still see what happened and you're going to retain kind of those big moments. But I actually feel like it really actually detracts from each episode themselves. And it's not that every episode is just like, oh my God, in a show, right? Because there's going to be down episodes and up episodes. But for me, you know, it's like you can go and binge a show in a day or 2 days, and then you're going to wait literally 363 days until you watch it again in most cases. And so I find that I struggle sometimes to remember awesome moments or key things, and you start talking about everything more holistically. Whereas if you think back, you know, when for those of us that are old enough to remember having to like DVR things and watch them as they came out on TV, right? You know, I remember, you know, a new episode of Game of Thrones or whatever would come out, and then I'm in the office, and like that whole week, me and my friends or my coworkers, we'd be like, man, did you see that? Or did you catch that little detail? And like we would like dissect these episodes for that whole time, and then
piece by piece.
And it was almost like you consumed it deeper and in a better way. Neither is really, I think, perfect, but for me, that's my struggle of, you know, am I just blitzing through this and missing things, trying to binge it, versus what we started to see with Marvel, you know, and some of these shows, Star Wars, doing the single episodes per week. But I know Kyle and I have talked because, you know, The Boys came out that way, and then the internet just like lit them on fire and started reviewing them horribly simply because they were doing episodic releases. Times have changed.
Crazy.
That's something I need to watch actually, because that's been highly recommended.
Fantastic.
But one thing I said to Matt the other day was, I think as well, one thing you've got to remember is the characters that they're doing these series of aren't the main characters. They're kind of almost the side characters in the movies.
True.
You know, would you go and watch at the cinema? Potentially an audience, you know, isn't going to be as interested in going to see a 2-hour film or a 2.5-hour film of
Loki
or Loki, or, you know, you know,
they're great characters.
The fan in me probably might still want to go and see it, but at the same time, you've got to look at it from a perspective. And like Carl said, it's getting that kind of having a bit more time to give you a bit of backstory about the character if you need it, or build a bigger story. And I think they've done it so well. I mean, WandaVision, we've talked about it several times between us, me and Matt, but I think they just done that so well, and where it led to. And
the interesting thing about Marvel too is, you have these individual movies, but it's all been long form storytelling. I mean, we've been in a 15-year movie series with them, going from Iron Man 1 to Avengers Endgame. And so even though some of them are self-contained, it's really been the exact same thing, just in a bigger, longer span. But I think to make your point, like Black Widow Black Widow is a perfect character that, you know, if Marvel was doing series back when they first introduced her to the big screen, we probably would have gotten a Black Widow series at some point. But, you know, they had ScarJo in there just continuing to show up in Captain America.
Wasn't she?
Right, yeah, and she's in all these films. But, like, now she has this following that the movie fans really are into Black Widow, and now she's getting her own movie if it ever comes out. But, you know, like they've got this whole feature film with just her, and I don't think that would have ever happened, you know, if they weren't kind of doing that long form inside of these movies.
That's what I was going to say. With I guess that raises the other point, especially with that film, which seems to be put back and put back and put back. And I was reading today that it is getting to the point where, because everything is tied in, that if it gets put back, that then sort of risks the story almost, because there are certain things that will tie in with other things, and then they have to be put back. I don't understand that, and you know, there's been the thing with James Bond as well, and with Tenet and films like that. It's like, it has to be in the cinema, and for me personally, I just think why everyone watch it. Everyone's, like we said earlier, everyone has a bigger TV. Everyone can get a decent experience pretty much. Let us watch it. Don't you know what's the point? I know that certainly the director might think, it's got to be this experience, but I think a lot of people are just happy to see it and you know, enjoy it.
I think it all comes down to money, man.
Oh, of course, yeah, that's it.
That's all it is. Because there's no reason why Marvel hasn't put Black Widow on Disney Plus. No, like there's literally no reason why that hasn't happened yet. Yeah. And they know that they're going to get that box office money.
I think it's coming though. They announced a date. It's gonna July 9th. It's gonna release in theaters.
Both, isn't it?
Yeah, at the same time. And I think that could change the game with HBO Max and Disney Plus starting to do movie releases for the premium package. Yeah. You pay the extra $30 and you get the movie right then and there. They tried it with Mulan. I don't know what the numbers were on Mulan, if it was successful that way. Obviously, we saw it with the Snyder Cut as well. But if those start to do well and they find that people are willing to pay, and hey, I'm going to pay $30 so I can watch it in my house instead of having to go to the theater, like,
don't do it.
You don't think it's going to change?
No, you're already paying for the subscription. I will not pay an extra dime for any movie like that. You know,
I'm the same.
We were talking about this the other day. It's madness.
Yeah, fans should not. I won't say that fans can do whatever they want. It's their money, but you know what I mean. Like, please don't let this become the new norm.
Yeah.
Because we're already paying for them, and now they're like, you know, trying to go back to pay-per-view. You know, like it's kind of like the wrestling model. Like, am I gonna have to watch you and then pay $60 to catch out this event? I don't know. That's not going to be for me, but I know they had some success with it.
And I think with Mulan, it was only, I don't know how many months it was after, and then all of a sudden it was on there available for you to watch anyway. So, I mean, if I've got to wait a couple of months to watch Black Widow, which again is, I kind of, again, back to what Matt said, like, would I want to see that at the cinema anyway?
Right.
Yeah.
I'd probably be a bit like, I'd like to see it, but at the same time, I wouldn't feel like, say, like with some of the other films, like obviously the Endgame and Infinity War,
right?
It was like, I need to see this.
Yeah.
Black Widow, I can probably wait. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not kind of one of them ones where I'm looking forward to seeing it because I think it's awesome, and she's a cool character, but I'm not kind of desperate. And I think that's what they've got to remember. But at the same time, like you said, Chris, we already pay X amount of money for the subscription on Disney, and it's the same with Netflix, it's the same with Prime, and that's the way it's going now. I mean, I've got all three of them, so you know, it's kind of, you know, you are paying, and I've got Sky TV, so that's another thing you pay out for, and you know, it's they're always trying to find ways just to make more money. But I mean, what I will say from a Disney standpoint, and you touched on it earlier, is like the quality of what they're putting out now. I mean, Mandalorian for me, Matt, you were the one that convinced me to watch it. I'm not a massive Star Wars fan. I've seen them all, but I'm not like die-hard Star Wars fan. But Matt convinced me to watch Mandalorian because Matt, you say how you feel about it.
I loved it, and being a lifelong Star Wars fan, it was just like a dream. A lot of it was so good. Just the attention to detail more than anything that they put in. You know, you'd watch an episode, think, oh look, that's that, or that's these little bits that would be put in there, and these little jokes that were sort of in jokes, and you're like, oh god, that's so cool. But again, just the cinematic quality of it. Like there were so many bits that you thought you forget you're watching a TV series, and it was on a par with movie quality, which I think is the most amazing thing. For me. Yeah. But fantastic, and the fact that it was, again, I think it's slightly contradicting what we've just said. That a lot of the characters in that were completely new characters, but they were very much in the vein or like true to the story or true to the universe that Star Wars exists in, and it worked. Everything just worked. It's brilliant.
Well, it proved that we can get away from the Skywalkers.
Yeah, that's it.
Anybody that's listened to me knows my thoughts on that. But I'm with you, man. Like it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
for Star Wars after so long of kind of getting a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, it was everything you loved, but new. Yeah. I think that's the best way to describe it. What did you think of the newer films then, the last trilogy? As you put that out there,
well, I've listened to your chats on this, Chris, as well. I know how you feel about it.
Yeah, Kyle's gonna sit back with his cup of tea. I thought they were mediocre at best, really. Like entertaining, fun watches, good CGI and everything like that, but I think that they spent way too much time trying to service old fans, and they didn't need to. I know that even with it being kind of a conclusion to a story that was already being told, some of that had to be there, and that was fine. But I just felt like we were just continuously getting the same thing recycled over and over again. More Death Stars, and so it just didn't do it for me. Like my whole thing is summed up in The Mandalorian. Star Wars is such a vast universe with so much creativity, so much diversity, so much cool stuff, between lightsabers and blasters and spaceships. I mean, you name it. And then we were just getting fed this same like tiny little slice of it. Yeah. And in a lot of the same ways. So when we saw The Mandalorian come in with fresher characters that may have been familiar, but we're fresh, and we go back to Tatooine, but instead of only seeing Mos Eisley for the 19th time, we're seeing different ports, different parts of it. The Crate Dragon, which was just something based on a little line that Obi-Wan said, just all that kind of stuff. It just feels different. It feels fresh. Yeah. And that's what I'm looking for. Like the High Republic stuff that's coming out. Just give me stuff we haven't seen in this vast universe.
I think of the new films, one I enjoyed the most was Rogue One. I thought that was a great film, and again, probably for that reason, it's taking that little snapshot of something you've heard before, but just exploring new characters and that new sort of perspective on things, and just without spoiling it for anyone who's not watched it, the ending, like the way. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It wasn't it a bridge? Wasn't it a bridge between two movies? Wasn't it?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's the story of how they got the plans of the Death Star as such. Yeah.
It was one of the best films, I think. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. But the thing I would say about the newer trilogy is sort of cinematically, I think there were certain moments in it that just blew my mind. It was, sort of being a Star Wars fan, there was I sort of said this before to James, out of all the films that there are certain things that Star Wars just does visually better than anything else. Like that, there are just so many moments that you see and you think, my God, this is which I was pleased Disney kept that very high quality sort of visual aspect of Star Wars. I think that's one thing they did incredibly well.
Wasn't it the Mark Hamill stuff that kind of wound people up a lot?
that upset me a little bit. It was just that longing of at the end of Force Awakens, where you see like Luke. You think Luke's here. He's going to sort everything out. Luke's the man, and he's like, oh, no, I don't really want to do it anymore. And he's just what. Yeah, he just whines through the next film. God, this isn't the Jedi that we know. But
yeah, you can tell they had no real vision. They didn't know where that story was going to go for that trilogy, and the shifting between directors and stuff I thought was a mistake. I kind of usually get some weird looks because for me, if I were to pick one out of the back half of the last three, I liked episode 8 the most, and most people are like, screw Rian Johnson, and we're all about the others, but I thought he took a little bit more risks and did a few different things. Yeah. And so that was a little bit better, but it was still A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi kind of revamped in a way.
It was. At least they didn't get Michael Bay to
I would have been out.
We keep slating him. We need to. He'll probably start hearing it one day. What about you, Cole? Are you a big Star Wars fan or?
Oh yeah. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I defend the prequels through and through because the prequels were my Star Wars movies. Obviously, I wasn't alive in the 70s and early 80s for the original trilogy, so I got to experience The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones and Revenge.
I was the same.
Yeah, so those hold a special place for me, and I know they're bad, and the CG is off, and Jar Jar, but I just love those movies. So there's actually a line, it's the first spoken line of The Force Awakens, and it irks me because the line is, "This will begin to set things right." And a lot of people have looked into that as Abrams and crew kind of saying, we apologize for the prequels.
Yeah.
And I sit back and I'm like, why are we apologizing for the prequels? Because, they're not great. They're kind of B-movie. But you know what? At least they tried something different. At least they tried to be their own movies. They tried to tell their own stories, even if it was a lot of Galactic Senate talk.
I think that's what spoils them. And in retrospect, I don't think they're as bad as you remember them. I remember seeing, I think it's Attack of the Clones in the cinema. I'm quite enjoying that. The story. I like the story a bit of sort of Django and Boba and that sort of foundation of where they came from. But it was, for me, who cares about a trade war? I don't watch, I don't watch a film to learn about,
Sounds like current news.
It is. It's like watching the news part of that trilogy. But I think they're great scenes. They're the pod racing and, the story of Anakin and there is, I love that, regardless of what people say, like seeing Anakin become Darth Vader, I think that was great. Seeing his sort of decline as such, and I thought there's some really good moments in it. I mean, the rest
see Yoda fight for the first time.
Oh god,
which was epic at the time. I remember my face melting off watching that in theaters back in the day.
I remember seeing that in the cinema, and literally everyone like. In the cinema when that happened, it was amazing.
Terrible movie.
And there you go. Exactly, we're proving it completely wrong.
Exactly, we're rewriting the critics. But this is the thing. I mean, same as you, Carl. It was my first kind of exposure to it, and it was at the time that was kind of the next level of graphic, effects that they could do in films and things like that. And I don't look back on them as really terrible films, but the problem is at that age you kind of I don't know, I probably didn't watch the 4, 5 and 6 until after them probably, because and I might have watched them and gone, these are a bit old, do you know what I mean?
Right,
and not felt them the same way that I did and appreciate them more now.
I think that's what it was, the sentiment in at that time when they came out. Me being old enough to have seen some of the original ones at the cinema and sort of having them It was films that were always on at Christmas, and you literally grew up watching sort of A New Hope and Return of the Jedi and so on. And then I think, I'm sure I'm right in saying this, before the prequels came out, they'd re-released the original ones at the cinema as well. And I remember, again, going to the cinema and like having that mentality of, oh, well, these are amazing. So they'd almost sort of like built it up to fail with all of the older guys that would loved it. And then, oh, it was just the mood of the time, that old school that loved Star Wars how it was. Maybe in 20 years we'll look back at this trilogy and say, it weren't that bad, you know.
Tony moaned a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, it's so hard. Like, I remember, like you said, when they remastered the original trilogy and put them back in theaters, you know, and you got like the new Jabba the Hutt and a couple new explosion CGIs.
People hated that.
Well, people hated it.
Yeah.
But because it was sacrilege to mess with those films. But I remember like my grandfather and my dad, who had, you know, made me watch those films on tape, you know, before they came back out remastered. Like, they were super pumped, and they were just like, oh, this is gonna be the best thing ever, you know, movie, Star Wars, the whole 9 yards. And then we went right into the prequels, and it kind of deflated everything. But I think that the challenge with Star Wars, no matter what, and it's going to be different now moving forward because it is here, like, and they are never going to go a decade or two, you know, between films and projects. But when you go that long, and it's something that's got such a cult following, which is kind of weird to say for Star Wars, but it's a cult following in its own way. You're never going to get past the fans because everybody just spends all this time doing mind games and like, this was the greatest thing ever. And you know, all of that, it gets built up. To me, it was almost built to fail regardless. It was almost like if you would see Hulk Hogan wrestle one time in 1985 and you're like, dude, oh my God, that is the greatest thing that I've ever seen. And then you never saw him wrestle again until 2005. And then he comes back out and you're like, dude, this is gonna be the best match, the best wrestler you have ever seen. Oh my God. And then it's like old Hulk Hogan who can barely move around the ring and like barely bend over and everything. And it's like, no matter what you did, you weren't going to get a fully satisfied audience.
100%. The leg drop doesn't do it for you. Like, that's not a good finisher.
Most devastating finisher in history.
Oh God. Well, I mean, I could talk to you about wrestling for hours, but Matt will he'll log off. So but well, I mean, we've probably come to the end now, but it's been a pleasure talking to you chaps, and we'll have to get you on again to talk more because we've barely touched the surface. I know you guys obviously do your comic reviews and comic covers things and things like that, so we have to get you on again, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us. We can talk geekery anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Where can our listeners and viewers find you if they don't know already?
I mean, we're on all the major podcasting platforms, and then all the social medias, you know, at GeeK KetchUP Pod on Instagram and Twitter. We've got a GeeK KetchUP Podcast YouTube and GeeK KetchUP Podcast on Facebook, but probably the easiest way would be to hit our website, which is just GeeKKetchUpPodcast.com, and you can find links to everything there, or reach out to us if you want to. We're pretty active on social, so if anybody wants to touch base or comment, we try to, you know, chat back with everybody, because, you know, the more, it's all about spreading the love of geekery, so the more we can interact with folks and have these kind of conversations, it's really one of the main reasons why we started it all. So
exactly. Well, we will add all the details in the description, and we'll tag you, so people, if you are listening, go and check these guys out. Their show is awesome. But for now, thank you very much, Carl and Chris from GeeK KetchUP.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. Don't forget, if you did enjoy it, please like, subscribe on whatever platform you're watching and listening on, because in that way you won't miss out on any future episodes we put out.
And don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms as well. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and give us a follow, and you'll be able to keep up to date with all of the latest episodes and posts that we put out there. But thank you for listening and watching.
And we'll see you next episode.